Video number 2 for actually designing and creating a platform-style game in the Open Processing P5.js language. Now, in the first video, we just created this, our basic game platform, where we have our window, we have a box to represent the character, which will be replaced eventually by an image of a character. We have another rectangle to jump on, and we've drawn a sky and some grass. In this video, we're going to get into actually making these things move around. So we're going to have to implement keypressed and key typed functions. But instead of doing it like ways previously where you can't press more than one key at a time, we're going to learn how to also import a library to give us some additional coding applications. So, a couple things we want to start off the bat. What is a library? In processing, we know that there are many commands that are already pre-written. So for example, var, create canvas, rect mode, text align, stage, we created that, but if, function, draw, etc. There's all of these built-in words, all these things, all these commands that we can just type. Those are in the library of the P5.js language. However, what if you want more commands? What if you want to be able to do things that don't exist in the original dictionary or language of the program? Well, there are other libraries out there that you can enable. Why aren't these libraries enabled all the time? Well, let's say, for example, you're trying to make an animation. You might not need a video game library that does things like collisions or key presses or sounds or whatever it might be. And if you have those extra libraries enabled when they're not needed, you could actually make your game or your application a little bit more laggy and perform poorly. So you only want to implement the libraries when you actually need them. What we're going to do is we're going to enable a library called P5Play, and that gives us a different way to code our keys, which allows multiple keys to be pressed at a single time, not something that you can do in the standard library. The first thing I want to do in the global section is we're going to put a big comment at the top saying that the P5.play library, can't type today, sorry, library must be enabled for this program to run. If the library is not enabled, this code will not function. So we're relying on the library to be turned on, or else you're going to get a ton of error messages saying a command could not be found. To turn on a library in the open processing world, you open up your sidebar by pressing these little three dots. You scroll down to libraries. Here's a couple listed right here. So P5DOM, P5Sound. We're going to hit the Show All button, and you can see that there's tons of libraries to pick from, whether you're doing three-dimensional design, different types of plotting, whatever it might be. We're going to turn on the checkbox for the P5Play library. You then have to hit Save for this to be applied. Now, when you have libraries turned on, sometimes you might find that random error messages appear while you're typing. Things like references or line 0, whatever it might be. Don't get stressed out about those. You want to only be looking at error messages that have to do with specific lines other than line 0 or commands not being defined, typos, or if you start to see red lines appear as you're actually typing. So for example, if I forgot an equal sign, I can see that there's a red dot here, and those are the types of error messages you want to be looking for, not so much the error messages that sometimes pop up at the bottom of the screen. Now, for our character, we would like him to move left and right using the left and right arrow keys, and we're going to make him jump using the A key on the keyboard. Technically, you could use any key combination you'd like, doesn't really matter, but what you need to know is if you're coding your function keys, so your arrow keys, shift, enter, etc., you have to use the key pressed function. If you're coding your alphanumeric keys, all of your numbers, all of your letters, you have to use the key typed function. So I scrolled down here all the way below my function game, and I'm going to add my function key pressed. Let's close that immediately so we don't forget. So close, key pressed. And we're going to use this for our left and right arrow keys. Now, coding with the play function to do multiple key presses at a single time is very similar to what we would do normally in the existing library. We'd say something like if key code equals left arrow, etc., etc., etc. It's actually slightly simpler. So we're going to make an if statement for each key, and we're going to use what's called the key down command. Okay, key down. And again, this is part of the new P5Play library. Then in parentheses and quotations and all caps, you have to put the key that you're referring to. So left arrow. Notice that it's single quotations. Notice that it's double parentheses. So there's a parenthesis for the if statement, and there's a parenthesis for the key down. Okay, lots of parentheses, lots of areas to make a mistake. We're going to open that if statement. And if we press left, we want our x position to change. So P1x equals P1x minus a number, whatever you'd like to move to the left. I'm just going to put a comment saying move left. And then we have a little red dot here saying that there's something wrong. It's just that we haven't closed our if statement. So another close bracket and comment that saying close left. Great. If we press play, again, here's an error message like what I was talking about. This is referring to the library. There's not actually anything wrong. If I press left, this guy inches to the left. I can't push and hold my key yet because we have to call our function in draw. So I'm actually going to close this error message. I'm going to turn these error messages off, actually. If you go to the editor tab, you can actually turn off your console. So again, sometimes those errors can be a little annoying. You don't have to, but I will. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our draw, and we're going to call our keypressed function. Okay, so we're calling keypressed in draw. Now I go back to my game. I can hold my left key. If I release it, he stops moving. Let's go back down to our keypressed and do the exact same thing for right arrow. So if key down parenthesis quotation right underscore arrow all caps quotation parenthesis parenthesis open bracket. So if we press our right arrow, P1x equals P1x plus a number. Close right. And I'll put a comment here. Move right. Let's go ahead and press play. Check that out. You should be able to easily move both left and right. No problem. Moving a little slow here. Let's go ahead and move into coding our letter A key, an alphanumeric key, to jump up and down. So I'm going to go with my function key typed, new function. This is for alphanumeric keys only, not coded keys. Close key typed. So even though that we're using the P5.play library, you still need to use your separate functions as if you weren't. But the code looks exactly the same. So if key down, oh, I just realized I have a typo here. Down, oops. Key down A. Well, if we press A, we want our character to jump. Right now, we haven't set up any of our jump code. We're going to be doing that in the next video when we create gravity. But we're going to put a placeholder called jump equals true. So if I press A, we want to jump. Let's close A pressed. And we have to add an else statement on this one for if we're not pressing A. And if that's the case, jump is going to be false. So we have if key down A, jump is true, else jump is false. If we're pressing A, jump is true. If we're not pressing A, don't jump. Let's press the save key. Scroll up to your draw, and let's go ahead and drop our key typed function in draw. Guess we can save again, and let's just press play. Now when I press A, obviously nothing happens. We haven't created our jump variables yet. What we can do right now is we're going to go up and just make that variable for jump. So in global, I'm going to make a new section called gravity, and we're going to start by just making a variable jump. We'll set it to false in global because we're not going to be jumping when we start the game. And this is a question of should we or are we jumping? There we go. Let's press save. This is going to conclude the second video where we have our key type functions. In the third part video, we actually will add gravity so we can jump, we can fall, and we can even land on the platforms.